Hey everyone, GuardianE here with another live reaction and first impression video for Fire Emblem Heroes. And hot off of the heels of the Fate channel from last night, we are getting the trailer for the next set of new heroes to be introduced into the game, which are the Choose Your Legends 4 Brave units, the Choose Your Three Houses units, the basically the Three Houses leaders plus Lysithea. And so we're going to go ahead and watch this together, the trailer together for the first time. Obviously the characters, we know who they are. We already saw some of their skills. We already saw their art. So it's going to be a pretty light on the reaction part, but we are going to take a very close look at their skills when we go through again, just to sort of evaluate them as a whole and potentially differentiate them from their the other versions within the game. So let's get started. Banner is called A New Future, and let's see them in action. So there they all are. Since we already know who they are, I'm not going to look away. King of Faerghus.
My road to redemption is long, but I hope to be something like my father by the end of it.
Alright. Moon Gradivis. Noontime. Okay, Unity. Blue Lion Rule. So he is, of course, getting a unique skill. Right, there is Almyra's king. Right, so a flying archer. Again, I did go over their art. Wind Parthia. Let's see, Fury 4. Attack speed Rain 3.
Another successful scheme.
Always the schemer. Earnest Seeker.
I make it a point to dress in a tastefully mature way. It's worth the time.
Yeah, so she is going to be infantry. Dark Spikes. T. Okay, attack switch. Okay, so Hone Speed 4 was the.
Did you think I'd miss?
So I do want to take a closer look at her tome. The rest of her kit doesn't look that remarkable. Adrestian Emperor.
I will not allow those who slither in the dark to
Edelgard looks pretty awesome here with that art, and she is naturally in armor. Flower Hot Claire, Distant Ward. Okay, Black Eagle Rule. So we're getting new B-slot skills, or unique B-slot skills, I should say. She's taking like no damage. I want to see what that damage reduction is like. Alright, so new story chapter, Lack. That's weird. It's a weird story chapter. Freya is going to be making an appearance. Okay, and then it looks like the king is back there on that story map. Okay, new heroes are here. Anything else? Yeah, it can summon up to 4 times. So again, up to basically 160 summons. You'll be able to essentially guarantee yourself the entire batch of Choose Your Legends units. Of course, just to stress the fact that as with every Choose Your Legends banner, there's going to be a free selection as well. So you will be able to grab one of these units for free with neutral IVs. So just bear that in mind. If you just want one of them and want to duck out, then that is an option available to you. So let's go ahead and rewind and take a closer look at their skills. I guess it's worth mentioning up front, I mean, sort of the elephant in the room about how Choose Your Legends this year has a lot of people disappointed, and completely understandably so. I mean, I think that the reality is that a lot of people look to Choose Your Legends as being sort of an out-of-the-box approach, an opportunity to expand, not only diversify and expand the types of weapons and movement types that you would normally associate with characters, also just kind of see them in a different light, almost like an alternate version of the characters. And these are pretty run-of-the-mill renditions. Most of them are very on the nose as far as their representations in Three Houses, and I think from that perspective, a lot of people are disappointed, and I understand that they have every right to be. We're not seeing any off-the-wall weapons. They're basically the same weapons that we've seen for them, weapon types, I should say. And also weapon types that we're likely going to see for future alts, future legendary versions of the characters, as well as that we've already seen for past versions of the characters. And in some instances, such as with Edelgard and with Lysithea, we're seeing a direct mirroring of movement and weapon type. Now, what I will say is that, of course, just because they have the same movement and weapon type doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have the same role, that they'll fit the same archetype, and they'll be used the same way. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's quote-unquote power creep. There are other elements to consider, not only availability, but just, again, from a usage and buildability perspective, like how, what are the types of builds and things like that that you can use for the specific characters. I think Lysithea might be a little bit more prone to redundancy, potentially, but Edelgard, like Legendary Edelgard, for example, is exceptionally unique in, like, what she does and, like, her own kind of gale forcing. So I feel like, depending on what this Edelgard does, despite her being the same movement and weapon type, it's unfortunate for Edelgard emblem runners, of course, for that lack of diversity, but she could still play a very, very different type of role. So with that said, let's go ahead and rewind, take a closer look at their skills, see what they ended up pulling through for them, and just do an evaluation on the banner and see if I believe that it's worth pulling for, at least preliminarily. Now, like I said, I did take a look at the art during the Fae channel, so if you're interested in seeing my impressions of the art, please go ahead and I'll go ahead and link our reaction to the Fae channel itself, and you can see what my initial reactions were. But we're going to cut right to the chase here and go to the skills. So we've got Dimitri, who is an infantry lancer. It's got Moon Gradivis, a 16 might weapon. Unit can counter, so it's got distant counter built in. Grants special cooldown charge +1 per foe's attack during combat. Okay, so it has a breath effect. That is very good. Only highest value applied, does not stack. Special cooldown charge. Okay, so that's it. That's short and sweet. Distant counter plus breath effect. Only two things. We're getting distant counter plus another effect. We are seeing that now. And it's a heck of two effects, I gotta say. I mean, those are two very critical effects for enemy phase builds. So I could definitely see him already sort of fitting into that niche. We've got Noontime for the special. A new type of skill, Attack Defense Unity for the A slot. So if unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, grants attack defense +5 and bonus to attack defense during combat equal to current penalty on each of those stats ×2. Example, if unit has -7 penalty to attack, grants attack +19 for a net bonus of attack +12. Calculates each stat bonus independently. So just to clarify, attack defense unity doesn't neutralize the penalty. It actually just doubles a bonus in opposition to the penalty. So he still has the -7 attack or -7 defense, but to combat that, attack defense unity will grant a +14 attack or +14 defense. And then with the natural +5 that attack defense unity gives, as long as he's within 2 spaces, that's where the +19 comes into play. And then, of course, it accounts for the penalty that didn't go away. So you can kind of think about this if depending on whatever the penalty is that exists on him with attack and with either attack or defense, he's basically going to get that amount as a bonus, as a boost, in addition to +5. I don't know if I really said that any clearer than the actual description, but it seems as though this is really just a better attack-defense bond. Blue Lion rule for the B slot. Okay, so this is going to be his own unique B slot skill. If unit's defense is greater than foe's defense, reduces damage from attacks during combat and from AoE specials, excluding rockers, okay, by percentage equal to the difference between stats ×4, maximum 40%, and also if foe initiates combat, unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack. Really? So the only condition for this skill is that he has higher defense than his opponent. It works on player phase, it works on enemy phase, but essentially you get a huge damage reduction of up to 40%, where you take the difference of the stats ×4. So essentially, as long as he has 10 defense over his opponent, he's going to get 40% damage reduction from any either in or out of combat damage to him. Just flatly, like across the board. He's just going to get that damage reduction. It's not on the first hit, it's not on the second hit, it's just like straight, and it's not like once per turn or whatever, or once per phase, it's just all the time. He just has 40% damage reduction, which is very, very good. And if foe initiates combat, okay, so the second part of this is only enemy phase. Okay, so makes a unit guarantee follow-up attacks. Alright, so that is going to be a quick riposte, so to speak. So that is a very strong B-slot skill for sure. That's decked out. I mean, so Dimitri is going to want to pump that defense stat up as long as he meets that condition, because he's going to be very, very hard to kill. The fact that he has a built-in distant counter, the fact that he has the cooldown charge, the fact that he has, you know, with healing specials, boosted defenses, attack defense unity is going to boost his defense even more, which will allow him to have Blue Lion Rule active, because it will meet that condition, which innately having high defense means that you're going to be taking less damage, and then you're going to be taking even less damage, up to 40% from damage reduction. The guaranteed follow-up attack is gravy, so he's going to be mostly enemy phase anyway, from the looks of it, since he has a breath skill built into his Moon Gradivis. So, yeah, very solid overall, for sure. Joint Hone attack, yeah, okay, that's fine. At start of turn, if unit is adjacent to an ally, grants attack +5 to unit and adjacent allies for 1 turn. So yeah, Dimitri is definitely looking like an enemy phase bruiser. He is going to be a lance infantry unit, of which we don't have that many, actually, at the end of the day. Like, we did recently get Anna, who is, like, the direct opposite archetype of this character. But, you know, generally speaking, infantry lancers are in more short supply than I think other movement and weapon combination types. And he's definitely going to be... I'm curious to see what his stat line is going to be. I'm expecting that high defense stat and that high attack stat. And he's going to be an enemy phasing monster. So Dimitri... yeah, definitely bringing it home. All right, so let's take a look at Claude's kit. He is naturally a flying archer, and he comes with Wind Parthia. So it's a 14 might weapon. It's got a killer/slaying effect. Naturally, as with all bows, it is effective against flying foes. If unit initiates combat, so if Claude is attacking, or if unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, that is an exceptionally easy condition to meet. Grants attack speed defense rest +5 during combat, an in-combat boost, and a unit also deals damage to foe using a special, restores 50% of unit's maximum HP, triggers even if 0 damage is dealt. What? So, hold on. So, let's break that down. Slayer/killing effect is always good. So, if unit initiates combat, so again, it's a player phase based weapon, but it happens on both phases as long as he's within 2 spaces of an ally. So, again, the condition is going to be really, really trivial to actually meet. So, you can pretty much consider him always having the effect of his weapon. Grants attack speed defense res +5 during combat, which is very, very solid for an in-combat buff. That's very strong. And if unit also deals damage to foe using a special, he restores 50% of unit's maximum HP. That's absurd. So that means that every single time he procs a special, even if 0 damage is dealt, and so the condition of him dealing damage to foe using a special really just means it's an offensive special. Like, it actually, you know, it activates during combat and actually attacks into the enemy. So as long as it does that, he restores 50% of his HP max. Like, on paper, that is such a ridiculous amount of sustain. It's awesome. I'm curious to see what his HP stat is going to be, because quite frankly, if his HP stat is like 36 or 35 or less, then yeah, I mean, 50% of that isn't, you know, it's not breaking any records or anything. But at the same time, I mean, that sustain is pretty incredible. And it can likely stack and work in addition to healing special. So if you have Noontime, if you have Ether, this is really just going to allow him to heal up to almost full, basically, every time he activates that special. So that is, that's pretty phenomenal. And the fact that he has -1 cooldown on his killer/slaying effect on his weapon means that he's going to proc those specials more often, which means he's going to top off his health more often. Really cool. That's really interesting. Fury 4 for the A slot, grants attack, defense, speed, res +4 during combat. So he has kind of a worldwide all-rounder, you know, stat boosts. So all of his stats from Wind Parthia and Fury 4. So he's going to be rocking some pretty powerful stats when he's attacking. Chill speed defense 2 for the B slot at start of turn. Inflict speed defense -5 on foe. On the enemy team with the highest speed plus defense total through its next actions. Those are certainly 2 of the skills that he would want to impact the most. Speed just allowing him to double more, which allows him to proc his special more, which allows him to heal basically 50% of his health, which is amazing. And then the defense means that he does more damage, which is always something that he wants to do. Now here's where it gets a little bit more interesting. His C-slot skill is attack speed rain 3. This is a new C-slot skill. Inflicts attack speed -4 on foes within 2 spaces during combat. Huh. So it's like a nega goad. Basically, as long as a foe is within 2 spaces of him, he's going to inflict attack speed -4 on them. That is very interesting. So first off, it's an in-combat debuff, which makes it exceedingly difficult to avoid, or there's really no way to avoid an in-combat debuff, so that makes it very, very potent, since they've added all of these ways to neutralize in-combat buffs, for example, or they've obviated ways to get rid of activated buffs with the lull skills and things like that, or at least kind of ignore those buffs. So attack speed rain is almost like a new age of C-slot skill. I mean, it allows you to debuff the enemy rather than buff yourselves. And it's very, very interesting and a wholly like self-supportive C-slot skill. It's one of those where you can kind of slap it on somebody and like let them run with it, and then they're just going to do more damage and get more speed in opposition to their opponent, without really having to worry about composition and worry about where the rest of the team is, like stuff like that. Not really a concern at all, and it'll do great things. So it's interesting that attack speed rain 3 says during combat. I'm not 100% sure if that means it's during Claude's combat. It says attack inflicts the -4 on foes during combat. So it could be during the foe's combat, in which case it's anytime any of the team members attacks into this enemy, they're going to suffer from that attack speed -4. That's very possible. Or it could just be if Claude initiates combat or is in combat with them, it's the attack speed -4. If the actual activation is for anybody to be in combat with this foe, then it's a lot better than if just Claude is in combat. So I do want to see that tested just to make sure, like 100% sure it works how we think it works. But, you know, it could be a nega, you know, if it works where any ally attacking into this foe within 2 spaces will activate this attack speed -4 during combat. It's basically like a nega goad, kind of. You can kind of think about it that way. Which makes it very, very powerful. And you can think about having a squad of units with attack speed rain rather than, you know, rather than goad, and it obviates the need for you to have like an emblem team with like goad flyers or goad cavalry or something like that, goad armors. That does have the potential to be exceptionally powerful. I am curious. I would like to see how that's tested, how that actually pans out in practice. So let's keep going here and see Claude in action.
Another successful scheme.
Yeah, that heal's crazy. Okay. All right, next up, Lysithea. We've got Dark Spikes T. 14 might weapon, effective against cavalry, so we knew that. It is a cavalry effective tome. Grants speed +3, that's always solid. At start of combat, if foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75%, grants attack speed +6 during combat. If unit's HP is less than 100% and unit initiates combat, unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack before foe can counterattack. Okay, so that's a lot packed in to a little package here. Let's break this down. Dark Spikes T, effective against cavalry, that's solid. Having effective against a movement type is never a bad thing. At start of combat, or grants speed +3, that's just a straight up stat boost, that's solid. At start of combat, if foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75% HP. I'm never a huge fan of these. I've said it before, and I sound like a broken record. Whenever there's a skill that's condition is based upon the enemy's HP, I never really am a huge fan of that because I feel like you don't have as much control and it's not as universally applicable to every scenario. So because of that, I'm not a huge fan of that. Of course, that's luckily only one element of this tome, but in the event that you meet that condition, she gets attack speed +6 during combat, which is nothing to scoff at. That is a very, very solid offensive buff, in combat offensive buff to her while she's in combat. If unit's HP is less than 100% and unit initiates combat, that is an exceptionally easy condition to meet. Basically, any chip damage at all will activate that. And she initiates combat. She's going to be player phase oriented, much like her non-choose your legend self, which is what it seems. If that's the case, then it's going to be, again, this is going to be kind of a wash as far as a condition. She's pretty much always going to be able to have this active for the most part. Unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack before foe can counterattack. So that means that she essentially has a Brave Tome. She can't quad, but she essentially has a brave. She attacks twice in a row with guaranteed, regardless of what her speed stat is. So it's actually kind of interesting to think about it that way, because why would Dark Spikes T give her speed +3 if she's going to be making guaranteed follow-up attacks with regularity? It's still worth having high speed, because at least on the initial initiation with somebody, before you even take any tick damage, it's helpful to be able to double. So I'm not going to say it's a waste. It's just kind of weird. It's like weirdly in opposition, I think. But then I guess on the flip side, it also avoids doubles on Lysithea, so it's still useful there too. Anyway, I digress. That is a very, very powerful effect. The HP minus 100% and initiating combat, having that Brave effect on a tome is very strong. Having the speed +3 is great. Having the cavalry effective damage is great. I'm not in love with the first part of that tome, but it's, you know, solid if you get the condition to meet. Yeah, I mean, it's a good tome. It's very strong. The effect is strong. She can wreak a lot of damage. And she's going to be a player phase oriented infantry mage, which I know a lot of people are going to be disappointed about, especially considering that the original Lysithea that's in the game currently is a very, very powerful offensive player phase mage as well. So, player phase red mage, I should say. Moonbow for the special, attack speed push 4 for the A-slot skill. At start of combat, if unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%, grants attack speed +7 after combat, takes 5 damage. So obviously, very quickly activating the second condition for Dark Spikes with attack speed push 4 synergize as well. Attack speed push 4, a very, very powerful premium A-slot skill still. It's been a year, and it is still exceedingly strong. First introduced with Brave Camilla, and it is still very, very strong. Lull Speed Res 3 for the B-slot, inflicts Speed Res -3 on foe, and neutralizes foes' bonuses to Speed and Res. So that is going to be especially helpful on her first initiation, of course, because she's going to be doing more damage with the Res, the Lull Res, and with the Lull Speed, it'll help her double, and also prevent doubles against her. Hone Speed 4 for the C-slot. At start of turn, unit grants speed +7 to adjacent allies for 1 turn. Yeah, not a whole lot of frills there. So, honestly, her kit is okay. I mean, it's pretty standard fare. Not to say that the skills themselves aren't amazing, because they are, but it's a Choose Your Legends banner, so you would expect her to have full decked out kit. She does. It's just not a ton that we haven't seen before. And you know, as far as her weapon effect is concerned, it is strong. So it's certainly a multi-layered weapon. It has a lot of facets to it. You know, a lot of powerful effects. We already went over it, but not a ton that we haven't seen before. I mean, there's certainly components to it, like, you know, the HP minus like under 100%, you know, is an exceptionally easy condition to meet and stuff like that. And but when you break it down, she is going to be essentially a red Brave tome. She's going to deal a ton of damage on that player phase, especially against cavalry and with all of the other skills in her kit. But just nothing groundbreaking, I'll say. You know, Lysithea fans, she's gonna wreak havoc. You know, don't think she won't. It's just that she's not bringing anything exceptionally new to the table here. Here's Edelgard, going to be an axe armor unit with that lovely, lovely Kaboon art, which I'm sure everyone is tired of me harping on. So she is going to have Flower Haute Claire, a 16 might weapon. Accelerate special trigger cooldown, so it's going to have a killer/slaying effect, already solid. At start of turn, if unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%, unit can move 1 extra space. That turn only, does not stack, so it has a built-in armor march, okay? And grants the following status to the unit for 1 turn. Unit can move to a space adjacent to any ally within 2 spaces. At the start of combat, if unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%, inflicts attack speed -6 on foe during combat. Okay, alright, so killer/slaying effect right out of the gate, that's strong. So both of her conditions, it's interesting, all of the effects of her weapon essentially are tied to her HP. And it's as long as she has HP greater than or equal to 25%. And for one thing, she gets kind of an added effect or activated buff at the start of the turn, and then the other check is actually at the beginning of combat. So the first effect, unit can move 1 extra space. That's very, very solid. You know, limited mobility, what's that? Edelgard doesn't know what that is, especially with all of her armor versions, just ignoring that aspect. Yeah, so I mean, that's definitely a solid thing. So also grants the following status to the unit for 1 turn. Unit can move adjacent to a space adjacent to any ally within 2 spaces. That is also a very powerful effect that can lead to some very unique strategies and movement shenanigans that that really open some doors for sure. And that means that she is going to have really unparalleled movement ability as an armor unit right up front, like at the very start of combat every single time. So that's, you know, that's pretty great. And then at the start of combat, if unit's HP inflicts attack defense -6 on foe during combat. I mean, that's in combat debuffs. I've talked about how they're the hardest to avoid or negate, I should say. They're not really possible to negate. And she's going to enjoy that +6 damage and that -6 damage that essentially she's going to take as long as she has greater than 25% HP or equal to 25% HP. And to keep her topped off, she's going to have Noontime for her special. Distant Ward for the A slot. If Magic, Staff, Dragonstone, or foe initiates combat, grants attack res +5 to unit during combat, and unit can counterattack regardless of foe's range. So I've said that of the conditional, like close/distant counter A slot skills, the Distant Ward is much better than the close counter derivative. Just because it covers more units out there, essentially. It covers like a wider variety of those types of units you would want to tank from a range. So magic and staff users in general, you know, it doesn't cover archers, it doesn't cover dagger units, so that's kind of the hole in using a conditional distant counter like this. But she's going to enjoy that attack res +5 if she is going to be tanking a magic, staff, or dragonstone user. You know, mostly magic and staff users. Black Eagle rule. So let's take a look at this. It's her own unique B slot skill. If unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%, which that's beautiful. That synergizes with her weapon. I love when you can knock a bunch of conditions out with like maintaining one condition. Like, you know, an all-in-one is really just for maximum efficiency and versatility of a unit. It just kind of works. So unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack. And also, if foe initiates combat, damage received by foe's follow-up attack is also reduced by 80%. What? For follow-up attacks. Okay, so for standard weapons, follow-up attack means the standard strike. Weapons that grant unit attacks twice, it means the 3rd and 4th strike. Oh, okay, so it's good that they actually defined what that means. So follow-up attack essentially meaning that the double, whatever the double is. And so if you're quadding, what would be the quad? So that makes a lot of sense. So again, unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%. That means that Edelgard makes a guaranteed follow-up attack. It is not conditioned on player phase or enemy phase, just means that she is going to attack twice. So again, maintaining that HP threshold is going to make her happy and have all of her conditions met essentially for all of her skills so far. And if foe initiates combat, sort of leaning towards her being enemy phase, of course she has a conditional distant counter for the A slot, so that makes a ton of sense as well. Jives with that perfectly. Damage received by foe's follow-up attack is reduced by 80%. So that is an 80% damage reduction is you know, it's pretty effective. She's going to be very difficult to kill from doubles, especially. So yeah, no, that's definitely a powerful effect for sure. I would, at least like initially, my initial reaction is that Dimitri's is a little stronger, but I don't know. I'd have to look back at Dimitri's again. They're both very potent B slot skills for sure. And I like that Edelgard's kind of jives perfectly with her weapons. A joint drive res for the C slot grants res +4 to allies within 2 spaces during combat. If unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, grants res +4 to unit during combat. I actually really like the joint drive skills. I think they're really solid. And getting the res version of that here is definitely a great addition. And she can absolutely use it because she's going to be fending off those mages with her weapon and with the distant ward and with the Black Eagle rule. Yeah, she's going to be very difficult to kill. So it is interesting to note, especially that like since we're getting more units that can well, we just talked about Lysithea, how, you know, I said that how she essentially has a brave weapon, but it's not actually a brave weapon, at least when you look at it from the perspective of Black Eagle rule, because Black Eagle rule will consider that second hit as the follow-up attack. So the follow-up attack in that instance is going to be reduced by 80%. It's just kind of interesting to draw the parallel, or I guess draw the connection between Lysithea and Edelgard in particular, because that means that Black Eagle rule is going to significantly neutralize Lysithea's damage when she initiates on Edelgard. solid kit. I mean, so she has a lot of movement shenanigans, which I am always a fan of. And in the context of armors, that's not always the most viable or available strategy with armors. And it seems like she is going to be incredibly mobile, which is great. And then she's also going to have just this whole plethora of buffs, guaranteed follow-up attacks, and damage reduction tied solely to her HP stat. And as I had mentioned, in terms of like different archetypes, you know, Legendary Edelgard is also an armor axe user, but she's a lot more offensive based. I mean, she's both of them are to an extent mixed phase, but Legendary Edelgard is definitely more interested in activating her, like, you know, self-refreshing proc and then like attacking again or attacking another unit. Like that's what she's more interested in. This Edelgard is clearly more geared towards enemy phase, can certainly be a bit mixed phase. But definitely has the, you know, is equipped with the tools to enemy phase very solidly. So yeah, 2 Edelgards, you know, both armors, both axe users, but they're going to play different roles, and depending on your playstyle, you'll actually want to use one over the other. So let's keep going here.
I'll cut my own path.
And there she goes, cutting her own path. And taking basically no damage from that red mage.
You can't stop me.
Awesome. Okay. So these units will be summonable starting on the 18th of August. And since they are new heroes, of course, that means they are going to drop into the regular summon pool as soon as this banner ends. So you are going to be able to summon for them. They are not limited. And of course, we are all guaranteed at least one with neutral IVs. So, you know, you can take your pick. They're all great choices, and they all do great things, and all different things. And if you're a fan of any of these characters, you know, don't be shy about picking one of them up. Because they'll definitely and can definitely act as a carry in a lot of instances. I will say that out of the batch, for me personally, Lysithea probably has the most canned kit, like the kit that we've seen the most in the past, or a similar type of kit to what we've seen in the past. Not really bringing a ton new to the table, but that doesn't mean that she's not going to be potent, because she will be. But that said, they are all solid choices. And of course, if you really want to go for all of them, and you want, you know, one of each, you certainly have that safety net up to 4 times. You have 4 safety nets, basically. Every time you go up to 40 summons, you'll be able to grab one of them at neutral IVs. And of course, if you get bad IVs, bear in mind that we do have the trait fruits that are coming in the next update. So technically, you could neutralize them right away if you ended up getting a minus attack or minus speed or whatever it is that you want to effectively neutralize. I think that for me personally, you know, I'm going to spend some orbs on the banner. I'll go in moderately, but I'm not going to go crazy. I don't even know if I'm going to go up to the first mileage / sparking, to be honest with you. I'm pretty content in just like grabbing a pick. I think for me, Edelgard is probably a priority, so I will get an Edelgard no matter what. I think that if I'll probably summon enough to get an Edelgard and then maybe pick another one, or if I come up empty, which can happen, I'll just pick Edelgard for my free pick and then hope to get the others over the course of time. Again, remember that these are new heroes. They're going to enter the regular summon pool, which means that not only will they be available in future banners, there will be better chances to get them, in that there will be 3-person banners with them featured. There will be a Hero Fest with them featured, so you'll have future opportunities if you're not in a rush to get them right away. But let me know in the comments below what you think about the characters, who you're most excited for, if you're going to be summoning on this. I know a bunch of you out there are going for +10s. I know a bunch of you out there are passing, so let me know, confirm that for me, now that the skills are out, if you are diverting that plan at all from the course of action. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to leave us a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more Fire Emblem Heroes content. We thank you all so much for watching and taking time out of your day to spend with us. We really, really do appreciate it. I'm hoping that you're all staying safe, healthy, secure, and united out there, and certainly wishing the very, very best for you, your family, and your friends. And until next time, let's protect those skies.